good morning. So I just want to let you guys know that I didn't get to make the video lesson last night, so I'm making it this morning. Seems kind of rushed, but it's totally fine. So make sure you copy down the objective. We're going to go ahead and graph and identify parts of a circle, specifically on a plane. We're going to be doing a little more of the algebra type of component that goes with this. So the equation of a circle looks like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now h and k are the center of your circle, and then r stands for the radius of your circle. So really those are the only three parts of the equation you need that you're looking for. And there are different approaches to use when looking at them. If you will notice inside of the equations, they have the minus right there. That's usually an indicator that you're going to be switching your sign. So let's take a look here at example 1. You're going to go ahead and state the center and radius. And really it's just as simple as looking at it. You're going to be looking for h and k. So my center for this one is going to be at 4, -3. Again, like I said, you're taking the opposite of the numbers that are inside. Now your radius is going to be a little different to find, because this number here is r squared. Well, how would we get r by itself? We would take the square root of both sides. So realistically, whatever number is here, you're taking the square root of that to get r. So in this case, r equals 2. Not so bad. On letter B, things are a little different, because notice there's no h. There's no number that goes with the x squared. But that's okay, because if there's no number, that just means 0. So our center for this one will be 0, 5. And again, solving for the radius, r squared equals 36. So therefore r equals 6. On letter C, this doesn't quite match the form that we use because of all these numbers that are in front, or as we like to say in the mathematical world, the coefficients. So before we even do anything, we need to divide them out. So yes, you're going to be dividing those 2's out of everything. Boom, gone. And then 200 divided by 2 is going to be 100. Alright, so let me just rewrite that. Perfect. So again, looking inside the parentheses and looking at the fact that there is no parentheses, so that means there's no k value, so therefore your k value is 0. So your center is going to be at 4, 0. Your radius, r squared, equals 100. So r equals 10. Now we're going to go the opposite way. We're going to write an equation with the center and with the given radius. So we look at this and we say, okay, here's my h, here's my k. So we're just going to plug it in. So we're going to say x minus 5 squared plus y minus -2 all squared equals 7 squared. Now this was the part that I was telling you guys that you're going to be doing the opposites, because if you notice inside of here, negative is going to make that a positive. So that's going to be the opposite of -2. It's going to be a positive 2. And likewise over here, this -5 is the opposite of 5. So you have 1 x minus 5 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 49. There you go. Easy as pie. I think we're doing pie. All right. Writing the standard equation. This is for you guys to practice. Go ahead and give it a try. Pause the video. Okay, unpause it. And now let's go ahead and move on. Make sure you get these right. That's for the first one. For this one here, you should get now, if you're curious about this one, remember that your radius squared, you're supposed to square both sides. So if you're squaring a square root, then you get 2. So then that 2 would go right there. All right. Now, if we know the center of our circle and we know a point on the circle, we can still write the equation, because what's really happening here, I'm just going to draw a generic circle. Don't know what happened there. Is that if my center is here, and that's some point, and I have a point on the circle, like right there, that point and that center get me the radius. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find that radius. And to find the radius, you're going to use the distance formula. Now, I know some of you might be confused. Oh, why do I have to use so many formulas? Well, really, if you guys notice that that's what r is, all you have to do is plug in the information you know. That's your h and k, then your x and y. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean in a bit. So the general equation I'm going to start with, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now I'm going to write the center inside of our equation. And we're going to come back to this equation in a bit. We're going to fill in the details for r when we solve it. But I'm going to show you what you can do. If you take this equation here and you simply plug in that point, the 2, 2, you can then work backwards to solve for r. So here's what I mean. Now you can say 2 minus 1 squared plus y, and I'm sorry, that meant to be a 2, plus 3 squared equals r squared. Now we have some nice numbers. Here we go. You get 1 squared plus 5 squared equals r squared. So 1 plus 25 equals r squared. 26 is what r squared equals. Now at this point you might be thinking, okay, let's take the square root and get r. While that is not wrong, notice that all I need is r squared. And what does r squared equal? 26. So that's all I need. So now I'm going to go back to that equation and I'm going to plug in my 26 and replace the r squared. So therefore your final work is going to be x minus 1, oh my gosh, squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 26. Now, if that was a little confusing the first time, don't worry. Just go ahead and go back to that section of the video and watch again, because all we did was use the equation of our circle, plug in the point that it goes through for x and y, and we got r squared. and then we went back and we replaced it. Kind of like taking a little detour. Alright, so now go ahead and try that with this one, if you're feeling a little comfortable. If not, just go ahead and watch along. I'm going to start with my equation. X minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals r squared. I'm starting off with that equation. That is only plugging in my center right now. I am now going to plug in my point. So now I'm going to be plugging in -1 and 1 for x and y. So -1 minus 2 squared plus 1 minus 3 squared equals r squared. -3 squared plus -2 squared equals r squared. 9 plus 4 is r squared. So 13 is r squared. Well, there's our answer. The r squared is 13. So we're going to go ahead and replace r squared right here to get our final equation. There you go. Alright, now right here, if we know the equation of a circle, we can not only describe it, we can therefore graph it. Now, graphing obviously is not going to be perfect, and you're not going to be using your compasses for these. However, there are simple techniques that we're going to do that everyone should be able to use. So first thing I'm going to do is identify my center. Again, I'm looking for h and k. Boom, those two numbers. But don't forget, we're taking the opposites of them. So we're going to say 3, comma, -2. Now I look at this number here. My radius squared equals 9. So therefore, when you take the square root of it, r equals 3. Now, just as we've emphasized many times, 500 at least, your radius is the same distance from the center of your circle. Now, I'm not going to have you measure every single point because that's just not possible. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to work with your cardinal directions. And if you don't remember what those are, that's just like looking on an actual compass and looking north, south, east, and west. So we're going to go 3 units to the right, 3 units up, 3 units down, 3 units left. So those are 4 points that we're going to create. Once you have your 4 points, just connect them all as smooth as you can. Oh, come on. I'm going to turn off that feature, because I realize now that it's going to autocorrect all of my shapes. And there you go. There's your circle, centered at 3, -2 with a radius of 3. Okay, now we can go backwards. We can say, hey, here's a graph. Let's write the equation. Easy. Find the center. Boom, there it is, Mr. T. Awesome. What are the coordinates? Well, it looks like I went 1, 2, 3 back, and then we went 1, 2 down. Which, by the way, since we were lucky that circle was right there, that so happens to be our radius. Our radius is 2. So now just make your equation. And there you go. if we're given all these different equations and they're not in the standard format that we use for a circle, we have to do the factoring techniques. And that was what the worksheet was that I gave you to help you remind yourself, okay, how do we do that? And specifically, the factoring technique we need is completing the square. Now, if you're still lost with that, that's okay, because I'm going to kind of redo it here. But this part I need you to really pay careful attention to, because you are going to be doing factoring twice. Sometimes in some equations it's only once, but most of the time it will be twice. So here we go. Besides looking at this and saying, what the heck, Mr. T? Break it up a piece at a time. Notice that I have an x squared here, an x here. I've got a y squared here, and a y there. So all I'm going to do is rearrange my terms so that I have the x's together, the y's together, and that last low number, we're going to actually move to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and add 12 right here. Now watch this. I'm going to use the two different colored pens to help me out. Let me make sure the blue is a little, there we go. So check this out. X squared minus 4x, and the first part of completing the square is leaving plus and a blank. That blank is going to be important, and I'm going to show you guys in a bit how. Now we have our y squared minus 6y plus another blank. We're going to be factoring twice, once for the x and once for the y. And that's going to equal 12. Now what's going to happen here is on this side of 12, there will be two blanks as well. There will be a blank for the red equation and a blank for the blue equation. So if you remember, or if you don't, that's fine, we're going to complete the square here. So I'm going to look at my x term's middle term. So that's going to be my -4. To find this new c term that I need, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, take half of it and then square it. That's always going to give you the new c, and that's the general equation, is half the middle term squared. So this will be -2 squared, which is 4. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to add 4 here, and whatever you do to one side to balance out the equation, you got to do it to the other. Now we're going to do the same thing for y. So I'm going to take -6. Oh, wrong highlighter. I meant to use the blue. We're going to take the -6 and take half of it, then square it. So right here we got a nice 9. We're going to go ahead and write +9, +9. Alright, so this right hand side, no problem. 12 plus 4 plus 9, that's going to be a nice 25. This left hand side. Now part of the thing with completing the square is that this whole part right here creates a perfect square trinomial as well as this. Now you can factor it using the little x factor, the bottoms up, whatever method you use or you learned, but I'm going to tell you right now, every time you do this, they are always going to look like this: x plus or minus some number squared, and then in this case y plus or minus some number squared. So what number goes in there? Well, do you see the yellow highlighted number that I have there for the x term? That's a -4. Take half of it. Half of -4 is -2. So that's going to go there. That's just a nice little shortcut. Just say, hey, go straight to it. It's a pattern we recognize all the time, so that's why I'm not doing as much work on it. So for the y, looking at the blue highlighted section, half of -6, -3. And then of course, don't forget your 25. There you go. That's your equation. Then we're going to graph it. So my center is going to be at 2, 3. Again, remember you're taking the opposites of those two. Your radius is going to be the square root of that number, so that's going to be 5. So now let's graph it. 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then our radius of 5 means we're going to go 5 to the left, 5 to the right, 5 up, and 5 down. I almost couldn't count. All right. Barely made it, but hey, we made it. We're halfway there. Actually, we're more than halfway there. We are way more than halfway there. I don't like that one. And there we have it. There's our circle. Not the best circle, but it is a circle. Centered at 2, 3, radius of 5. Now, I'm almost certain that probably about half of you, if not more, are still going to be lost after this, so just follow along with me on the next example. Alright? So step 1, organize your variables. Make sure you know, hey, what do I have? Step 2, move the constant term to the other side. So what that means is you're going to either add or subtract it using your beautiful algebra. Step 3, we're going to go ahead and rearrange our terms. And don't forget to leave that blank space. That blank space is important. Now, we're going to go ahead and do step 4 together. In kind of the same step, we're going to find our missing C values. So again, looking at the 4 and the -8. So I'm going to say 4 divided by 2 squared. So that's going to be 2 squared, which is 4. I'm going to say -8 squared. Sorry, -8 divided by 2 squared, which is 4 squared, which is going to equal 16. Now, I should be technical and say, hey, that is a -4. I kind of got lazy because I know, hey, a negative squared is going to be positive, so it doesn't matter. But I need to lead by example. So there you go. So those two numbers, your 4 and 16, are going to get put in those spots. But don't forget, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you got to do it to the other. We got to balance this. So we're going to go ahead and say plus 4 plus 16. All right, now the fun part. We're going to factor that left side. So this is going to become x plus, and this reason I say plus is because of the sign right here. It's a positive, and half of 4 is 2. Bam. Plus y. Now the sign that's in front of the 8 is a negative, so the middle sign will also be a negative. And then half of 8 is 4. And that's going to equal -11 plus 4 plus 16, which should give you 9. All right. Now, you're going to have your center at -3, 4. I don't know why I said 3. Good morning. 2, -2, comma, positive 4. I know why I said 3. I was thinking ahead. My radius, I don't know why my pen's acting up. r equals 3. You take the square root of 9. Now we graph it. Negative 2 comma 4. And then we go ahead and go 3 units up, 3 units down, 3 units left, and 3 units right. All right. And then connect your dots. There we go. And that, my little critters, is the end of our lesson. So again, I won't be here today, obviously, because I'm making this video. Just go ahead and send me any messages if you have any questions. At this point, you can go ahead and grab the homework and you can work on it for the rest of the period. I want you guys to be on your best behavior today. Don't be little punks, alright? Have a good one. Take care. Bye.